Little bees, little butterflies, welcome back to the flowery garden of English writing. Last week we talked a lot about coherence and cohesion. This week we'll carry on a discussion cohesion and coherence. But before doing that, we need to do a little bit of revision. We need to remind ourselves what cohesion and coherence are all about. Take a deeper and thorough look at the definition of cohesion and coherence. Okay? Coherence, when we talk about coherence, coherent means what? What does it mean? Take a look. Normally, we are talking about micro level, right? We're talking about how we construct a sentence in order for this sentence to be connected with the sentence that comes after it and the one that comes before it. Okay? We're trying to localize. We're trying to make a small piece of jigsaw puzzle to connect with the next piece and connect with the piece that comes before it. Okay? That's what cohesion is about. And when we are talking about coherence means a larger picture, so-called macro level, M-A-C-R-O, macro level, a bigger picture. We are trying to construct sentences in order for them to make into a better, clearer picture of a whole. This whole, in writing, we mean a passage or a paragraph. We're trying to see what all the sentences in a piece of writing add up to. Yeah, I think last time we also mentioned another thing about coherence. It's about a topic. And let's recall in the first lesson, in the very first beginning of this course, in the first week, we talked about a structure, the so-called PEL structure. The P stands for what? Topic, point, right? For a particular paragraph, and sometimes a passage, it has to have narrowed down topic. We don't want, within the span of only several sentences constituting a paragraph, we don't want such a paragraph to contain things or the phenomena or the concepts that we have in mind. No, that's not good writing. In fact, that's messy writing, if we want to include everything and all things into one paragraph. We want to narrow it down. We want to talk about one, perhaps two, no more than three ideas within a short span of, say, 4 or 5 sentences. In order to make that happen, we want also to construct a sentence in order that each sentence revolve around a topic of a paragraph. And how do we construct that sentence? Normally, that sentence has the topic of the paragraph, and that topic of that sentence, of that paragraph, needs to come. Where does it come from? Where does it come in a sentence? The early part or the later part? The beginning part or the latter part? Normally, it's toward the beginning, not exactly the beginning. Perhaps a lot of times we have seen sentences, we have read sentences may come with a, say, introductory phrase, so-called introductory short phrase, such as, making your sound clear or clearing your throat, like I said, just as we mentioned before, comma, or in this chapter, comma. These introductory phrases cannot be avoided. And a lot of times it makes your writing clearer. Or at least it lets the readers to spend less effort on understanding. So that's that. And don't forget, one of the most important things I forgot to mention is the flow of information, right? We begin with a subject topic, and then we flow toward the end of the sentence. We tend to bring up something, new or old? Something new, right? Something challenging, something new, something that readers do not generally anticipate toward the end of a sentence, right? Also don't forget about the old to new information flow. With that said, you can understand the subject, the topic, always comes, not always, but it's better for the subject or topic of a sentence to come in the earlier part of a sentence, because it tend to be something the readers are familiar with. It tend to be something easy for us to understand. And then the sentence flows, moves to more unfamiliar ideas, moves to something more complex. Sentence-wise, we construct a sentence so that it flows from not only from old to new, but also from simplicity to complexity. To begin a sentence, we just said, we open the sentence with something familiar, with something old, but also with something that tend to be the general topic, subject of the whole paragraph or passage. Okay? But a lot of times, in order to diversify, in order to make the readers not bored with the fixed pattern of opening, we tend to diversify the opening with connectors. Sometimes that are called also logical connectors, such as therefore, however, hence, thus. And other times it's more complicated, like it is important to know, like such construction, it is important to note, and so on and so forth. These constructions, generally speaking, are vague. They read like beating about the bush, not being straightforward, not being clear on the exact point the writer is trying to make. So these openings of a sentence, it's better for us to avoid such style of opening. Okay? We want to be straightforward. We want to be clear in the very beginning. This is the general tendency. But of course, we are talking about rules, principles for writing. Be free. Feel free to break any rule, any principle at any time, if it suits your general plan, if it suits your logic of writing. Do not let your readers have a hard time trying to catch the main point, the topic you're trying to make. Okay? This is we talked about last week. And here, something new. Continued. This is also about how to open a sentence, how to begin a sentence. In here, monotony is generally what we wish to avoid in our writing. English language has many fears, but one of the deepest fear for English language is repetition. Repeating the same phrase, repeating the same word within a very short span of space, writing space, I mean. A lot of times it's called monotony. You're being monotonous. You're being, the style is of pure monotony. It simply means you are repeating. You are using the same words over and over again. Generally, it should be avoided as a principle. But we do not need to carry this principle to the other extreme. That is to say, for the sake of avoiding monotony, for the sake of avoiding repetition, we are trying to diversify. We are trying to make the opening of sentences as varied as possible. Well, this is two extremes. We do not need to go to that extreme either. Because what? Because if that happens, other more important rules, principles of writing are violated, such as you need to stick to topics, you need to focus, you need to be focused, you need to localize, limit your subject topic to very short ones and as few as possible, within the span of, say, a paragraph of 4 or 5 sentences. Okay? And the other thing is, even if you vary, you make your opening of sentences as various as possible, the readers may not notice. Because a lot of time, when we as readers are reading, we tend to follow the meaning and the logic first, and then pay attention to the form. Do not spend a lot of effort on making the appearance right. Rather, make the content right first, or make the idea right first. Okay? And meanwhile, on the other hand, there are also a lot of time we suffer from this problem. That is, it's really too monotonous. The subject topic is repeated over and over again. Within, say, 4 sentences of a paragraph, it's repeated 5 or 4 times at least. And a lot of students writing academic essays, papers, think it's unavoidable. Why it's unavoidable? Because it's the subject topic. The topic can hardly be substituted by say, synonyms or phrases, many different phrases of the same or similar meaning. True, admitted, you're right. But still there are things we can do to avoid literal word-to-word repetition. Take a look at this passage as an example. The bold-faced words, moral climate, moral climate, moral climate, a moral climate. Every sentence starts with moral climate. While, of course, this construction, this style of writing meet the standard, meet the principles, like we said, start with something short, and which is the topic of the paragraph. But then, again, the shortcoming is too apparent. It's too obvious. Can be avoided. Even though without inventing phrases and subjects of more advanced vocabulary, we can still do this, revising them, by replacing parts of it with other, even more common words, such as what can you think of at the moment? How do we replace or make revision to this repetition? The first sentence is the first sentence. It tends to be the topic sentence. Nothing can be avoided about moral climate in the first sentence, right? From the second sentence on, we can use pronouns. This climate. We changed at least one word. Good. And the third sentence, moral climate. We use another word which share the same etymology, let's call it. Etymology means the origin of the word, any word, okay? Morality, moral climate, morality. And the last one, amoral climate. It still involves moral climate, but it puts an A in front of it. An article. If we are not so dogmatic, if we're not so mechanic, we can still think amoral climate is different than moral climate. Okay? It adds something. Article A or an. Okay, the second problem is faked coherence. Sometimes a writer pretends to create a paragraph with connectors, with connections that give the superficial appearance of making every sentence into a whole picture. But if we take a better look, if we take a longer look, we'll find that these superficial connections are not in fact connection, are not in fact coherence at all. They are not a whole picture. There are things that do not fit together, even though things are put into place in order to make them connect. Okay? And the connection we are talking about here a lot of times involves these words such as thus, therefore, however, hence, thusly, so on and so forth. They are called logical connectors, and they generally creates the effect of logical connection. But then again, like we mentioned just a minute ago, real connection does not solely depend on appearance, does not solely depend on the connectors we use, but rather depend on the content, depend on the idea. The connectors are put in place in order to remind the readers that the first sentence and the second sentence, they are connected. And here is the logic that connects them. Whether it's cause and effect reasoning, whether it's parallelism, or be it contrast and contradiction. Okay? Take a look at this example, paragraph. Take a deeper and longer look. I'll give you 2 minutes and tell me if this passage, paragraph, is well connected with the bold-faced words like therefore, hence also, and so on and so forth. Is this one well connected? 大家看一下啊，我找人说，待会儿我找人说。2 minutes, then I'll ask someone, what's your idea, what's your opinion about this paragraph? 看不见的 take a picture， 后面同学看不清的 take a picture， 可以吗 ？Good to go？ 可以啊。More time。大概没关系，我们大概就说一句两句，你比较一两句没必要。There's no need to cover the whole past paragraph with 1, 2, 3, 5, 6 sentences. No need. As long as you can give me one example to point out if it's well organized, well connected, or not. ID?
Well, I think it's conjuncted with a word like that, but not connected. Even the conjunctions used in the passage is forced, and it's like I think the author was just trying to force on a connection between the sentences, but when you read between the lines, the sentence that follows after the previous one does not connect. Like intentionally.
听见了吗？ Hear that? The impression is the paragraph is he used an excellent word, forced connection. Connection is forced upon this paragraph by some logical connectors. If we take a look at the content, it's not that connected at all. If, in fact, it's messy, it's discursive, like all the examples we have met in the previous lesson and last week and week before last. The first sentence has a subject, and the second sentence has another subject, so on and so forth. Each sentence has a different subject and topic, so it creates an impression of confusion. For example, the second sentence said, therefore it should report on presidents objectively. The first sentence is not the reason why the media should report objectively on the president. No, it's not reason and then outcome. It's not reason and then result. No, sorry, outcome. However, is also misused. Okay? And also means, as a logical connector, it means parallelism. Okay? As if the first sentence doesn't finish the whole reasoning, and that here is something more. Also is a good connector for parallelism, and hence is also about reasoning. Give reason and then conclusion. Hence, to understand that person is important. No, it's not the conclusion from the previous sentence either. Indeed, the last word, indeed, is normally for emphasizing a point. Emphasizing a point. For emphasis, we need to know what's being emphasized. Well, in this new sentence, it's not emphasizing the previous one. No. So basically, this paragraph has been forcefully given some connection to make it look like well connected, but in fact it's not. Okay? So be very careful. When we use these connectors, we'd better let the idea flow first. The so-called logical flow, or the flow of idea, flow of content, is more important, has the priority. Okay? The words such as and, also, moreover, another, so on, for but and however, when but and however needed. That's when you want to make contradictions or qualify some reasoning. Okay? Contrast. Make contrast and contradiction. Okay? And consequently, therefore, thus, hence, these words always wrap up reasoning. The last but not least, if you can, avoid using such connectors, logical connectors, within a paragraph for too many times. It's not recommendable. It's not advisable. More often than not, I'd use twice, perhaps, within a paragraph of 4 to 5 sentences. Well said. Look, your readers don't need them. Don't need to see the connectors. When your sentences are cohesive and the paragraph and passages is coherent. Summing up what we have so far talked about, cohesion and coherence, here are 2 principles, 2 laws we need to bear in mind. First, begin sentences with the subjects or topics. Sometimes it's called, depending on the context, sometimes they're called subjects with respect to grammar, and sometimes they're called topic with respect to content. Okay? We begin sentences with subjects that communicate old information. Old to new, right? And then give new unfamiliar information toward the end of sentences. Okay? Old to new. Subject. Simpler, shorter subjects that is well related to the topic of the paragraph. We open with that and then move to new idea, unexpected, unanticipated, and more importantly, challenging and complex ideas toward the end of a sentence. Take a look. Here is another example. Read this passage, and then read the one that comes after it, which is generally speaking, use the same set of words, same set of ideas, but arranged in different order. What impression do you think it creates? With the first example, the number of dead, and the second example that opens with of all the wars in American history. Take a picture of the first example and take the picture of the next example. And let me know and tell me which one is better written. Okay, let's do them one by one. Tell me what your impression is about the first paragraph. What do you think? Is it cohesive? Is it coherent? Does it follow the rules, principles we have covered so far? 玉贤，好，哎，玉贤刚才一直跃跃欲试。来，给我讲一下第一段，就这，sorry，这一段再亮出来啊。就这一段，你觉得这一段好还是不好？那么原因，关键要听听原因分析。开始。不好 ，OK， 原因。因为第二个更好。我们先说这一个，它不好的原因来自于它自身，不要牵扯上第二个。自身原因是什么 ？Why within the paragraph? Tell me the exact words, the exact meaning, units of meaning that makes you think it's not well written, well organized, disorganized. Okay. 原因，你从哪看出来哪个字，或者哪个原则 ？What principle or law or rule is being broken in this paragraph? 不显眼。Okay, the impression is right. Okay, trust your instinct, trust your gut feelings. Okay, the instinct is right. It's not well written. It creates the feeling. It creates the impression of disorganization. Okay, the reason is first the sentence. Look at the first one. Where is the subject? Or how long is the subject? Take a look. The number of dead in the Civil War. Very long. Very, very long. The paragraph is only this long, and the opening of the sentence is so long. And then exceed all the wars in American history combined. Okay, this is only the first sentence, so we cannot say it follows the pattern of old to new or new to old. We do not know. We know nothing. But the second sentence, the opening of the second sentence, has nothing to do with the end of the first sentence, which is about other wars in American history. The second sentence begins with what? Lingering animosity. The feeling of being enemies toward each other. That's what animosity is about. Okay? So, connection or disconnection. Disconnection. Okay, disconnection. Dislocated. Okay? So in terms of information from old to new, information flow of old to new, this principle is being broken in here. And also for the second sentence, it has the same problem with the first one. It has an even longer subject topic. Take a look at reason for the lingering animosity between the North and South today. So long, so lengthy. Okay, we need something shorter, simpler. Okay, take a look at the second example. What do you think? The second example, a little better, right? It opens with an introductory phrase. Take a look. Introductory phrase, which facilitates reading. Okay? Of all the wars in American history, no one has exceeded a civil war in the number of dead. Okay. And the memory of this terrible carnage, information flow from old to new, carnage. This terrible carnage is connected to what? The number of dead, right? Number of dead. Similar. They share similar close meaning, okay? So, old to new. And especially for the second sentence, it looks like it has the merit of moving from simplicity to complexity. Take a look. The subject is the memory of this terrible carnage. Shorter. And if you look at the ending part, or the part toward the end, it's longer and more complicated. The reason for lingering animosity between the North and the South and today, okay? More and more complicated toward the end. Okay, this is a little better, okay, than the first example paragraph. Okay. Anything? Any comments? No, nothing? Okay. So the first principle is begin sentences with simple subjects or simple topics. Okay? And then move from old to new. And the second principle is, like we have already mentioned for quite a few times, keep your topics short and consistent within the span of a paragraph of a handful of sentences. Okay? Keep the subject topic simple, short, and reasonably consistent. Okay? Here is another example paragraph. It's a bit longer. It consists of 3 sentences. I'll give you another minute, and then you let me know if this one is well written. Does it break rules or abide by rules? Problematic or acceptable?
Acceptable.
Acceptable, and give you a reason.
I think a little bit it goes from the old to the new information because competition by Asian companies with American companies in the Pacific is the first phase of the study. So then if you look at the second sentence, labor cost and the ability to introduce new products quickly, in particular, examine. Examine is kind of like when we're talking about the first sentence. And then the conclusion of can the official American industry how to restructure its facilities will be developed from the study. So the study still dates back to the first sentence that it's about the study. So I think it's...
Well, the impression, you're trying to follow it logically. You're trying to follow the content, right? But here, the trick is about the form. Take a deeper and longer look at the form. How is every sentence connected? I mean, in terms of proportion of the opening, the subject, and then its verbal part. The first sentence opens with the subject, bold type, bold-faced. Take a look, it's long. And is the first phrase. For the verbal part of the sentence is comparatively very short. And the second sentence is even more dramatic. Take a look at the second one. The verbal part is composed only by 2 words. Are examined, right? It's here. Are examined. And for the last one will be developed. So is the first place. In comparison, the verbal parts of all these 3 sentences are much shorter than the opening part, the subject-topic part. This gives us the impression of what? A little imbalance, right? A little, as if you're having a very large head and then a small body. Well, in terms of rhetorical device, sometimes such construction is used. A very long, verbose opening, topic subject, and then it ends abruptly with some word. Sometimes this is called a periodic sentence. In terms of rhetorical device, they are used in articles, in essays, in writings, but not this often. This is being applied, periodic sentence is being applied too often. As if all the sentences ends abruptly. It creates an upside down feeling, okay? This is one of the demerits. And if you look at it longer, each sentence has its own topic. The first one is about competition. The second one is about labor cost. And the third sentence is about a plan, developing a plan. All these 3 sentences, what? Creates the impression of what? Jumping. Jumping from one another without much smooth connection. Generally speaking, although we are trying to catch the flow of logic, the author is trying to create, but in fact, even if there is some logic, he or she created, the appearance just diminish the sense of logic to the point, to the extent of zilch, none, nothing. Okay? So, this is the first one. The next one is a better example, is a revision of the first one. And we'll take a look at this one in the next session. We take a 5 minutes break.